Possibly, her eyes simply were looking west, over the mountains, past the Central Valley to the coastlands, and beyond them to the Pacific Ocean and Japan, where she had been born and raised until coming to America at the turn of the century. Matsubara Sayo wondered if her life was to end in this desert. Years of surviving in America had given her an invincibility and a wisdom that allowed her to accept hardship, tragedy, and betrayal, and see them simply as the underbelly of freedom. Was this prison camp another underbelly? Or was her journey in the beautiful land begun in Hiroshima 39 years before to end in this wasteland? Was she to ascend to the river of souls in the clouds, humiliated and defeated, cast out of the country by white ghosts who saw all persons with Japanese blood as the enemy? Matsubara Sayo refused that sentence. She, after all, was a Firehorse Woman. Hadn't she defied the portents surrounding this birth sign, transforming morbid omens into qualities of courage, imagination, and splendor? Her history would not end here, though she knew a history would begin here for those born within the barbed wire fence. As with the kabuki stories she had learned in Japan, tales rivaling American soap operas, she knew legends would arise from this insult. Let the winds rave, the sun scorch, frost and snow congeal. She would persevere, as she had for many years before. She would harness their kami power and transmute it into compassion and beauty. Thus this proud woman welcomed the darkened sky and gritty sand blown in her ears and mouth. She stood tall and alone and imagined the sounds of clacking wood in the wind. They were the sounds of wood blocks striking against each other, the brittle clacks that heralded the beginning of a drama. A legend was being born, a history begun across the ocean on a volcanic island chain called Japan, had arrived at a concentration camp in California's high desert country.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you read that really beautifully. It's
Thank
very
you.
emotional.
Yes.
How long did it take you to write this book?
It took me too long. It took me a long time. It took
Yeah.
me at least 10 years.
10 years.
When
yeah.
I first began, it was supposed to be just a story of Sayo, one woman, from taking her from the turn of the century to the internment. But when I began writing this story,
Yeah.
I got to like 400 pages and I was stuck in 1910
Right.
because
Right.
I could not get up to the Second World War because emotionally I was afraid
Yeah.
to take on the internment. I felt like,
Right.
well, how am I going to fictionalize this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, would it demean the internment? You
Right.
know, and so that was I had to go through a lot of
That's a very
work to get past that, and also I changed a lot of the line of stories. Then I came across the Indian aspect of it that I wanted to include, and it also too when you write a novel.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're like my husband, you get a, a amount of money to do a novel, that type of thing, you can just work through it. Well,
Yeah.
this was purely on speculation.
Right.
So I would write for a while, and maybe, for months I would not, and then I would go into another project, write another book or something like that.
Right.
So, so it was held in the background, as so many writers do with fictional work or novels,
Right.
anything like that, because they're not, quote, they don't pay you money,
Right,
until you're done. So it's a
exactly.
luxury to be able to have that time
Right.
to write on it.
Exactly. Oh, that's amazing. So,
Took
so
me a long time.
It took you a long time to do it. And have you written other books? In the meantime, have you had
Well,
other
there were
published?
a book of essays on Asian American womanhood, and I wrote a book with a Vietnam vet called "Don't Cry, It's Only Thunder," which was made into a movie.
Okay.
And lots of different projects, a lot of articles and short stories and things like that for magazines. Things that I could, someone asked me to do, and then I would do it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, when you sit down and you write a novel.
Okay, right, exactly. It's very inspirational. I mean, it's just inspirational that that you stuck to it and you've
That's
come up with
right.
this. But and I think it's so important because given the environment today. I mean, certainly you've since 9/11, the atmosphere in this country is, in many ways, it seems like we're repeating history again.
That's true. And we have to be very careful because we have to be aware of what fear can do, because that's what it was, this
Right.
fear. And the fear was enhanced, or whatever you may call it, by the media. It wasn't media then, but it was the newspapers and the radios. And the responsibility that our media has in realizing that they have such power, that when people look at television, it's like being hypnotized by it.
Right.
And so and if you just convey fear and you just work up this thing of fear, it's going to come back to you.
Right.
You're going to get it back. That is very important, not to dwell on fear. And this is what the worst thing that I think is happening, is that to quote profit on this fear.
Exactly. It's just we've got a culture of fear and suspicion, and we're just starting. The thing
That's
is, we're just
right.
starting with this. I mean, this is something that we could be dealing
We could
with for a
stop
while.
with right ahead and right now, and we should understand that's why, for instance, the JCL,
Right.
they're really working with the Arab American Citizens League, so to help them to
Are
you
they?
know, and so that what happened to us cannot happen to them. And one of the reasons why was,
Right.
of course, it was a very different time in how the Japanese Americans felt about, their rights and so forth. Most of us didn't even realize, that we had these rights and so forth. But that they have to, if today you speak out,
Yeah.
today you're visible, today you say, this is not right, this is not the American way to do things.
Right, right. Absolutely. Well, it's a beautiful book, and it's good. I think the message here is important to write what you feel. If you've got something to say,
Yes.
don't hold it in, and it's so inspirational what you've done. So I think.
Thank you for saying that. It took me a long time. That's what I was going to say.
Absolutely. Well, it's
when it takes you.
Yeah, I hope people. I think the reviews look like they've been really great.
Yes,
So
they have been,
it's really have something to say, and I'm really glad that you were able to come on my show. Looks like we're out of time here, but it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful passage and very
Thank you.
emotional. So I again, hopefully we'll see more from you,
Yes.
more books. It's just been terrific. And with that, I want to thank my guest, Jeanne Wakatsuki Houston, for coming on today. I want to thank my crew, all of their help with this. Thanks to KMVT for the use of the facilities. And the lesson here, I hope, is that we have an election coming up in November, and it's important. I think take advantage of that. I mean, it's your country. Vote for it. And if you can't think of who to vote for, dedicate your vote to somebody, maybe a soldier who has perished fighting for this whole concept of freedom. So thanks very much.